The city of Mumbai received surprise showers at the start of the last week, and I must say that it was raining goals in Goa, where the ongoing ISL is happening. And welcome to the Totally Indian Football Show. I'm your host Siju, and today I have with me Arko. We're going to take you through what's happening in ISL so far, and we're also going to talk about the Senior Women's National Football Championship, almost getting to end of its season in Kerala, and we also know that Arko is on the comms for that particular tournament. But before we come to that, let me welcome Arko. Welcome to the show.
Hi Siju, thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
Absolutely. We'll always have you back. You are our go to person, just like, when we have nobody coming on our show, we are like, we know who will come. And let's kickstart without much ado. Now, ISL, I think we are almost into two to 3 weeks into the season 8. And I must say, a lot of surprises. I think the first big surprise is that Goa are yet to win a game. They are still at the bottom of the points table. Let me start with that team. I thought I'll come to it in the end, but Arko, all of us, I think most of them who I asked, and even myself, even if I had to ask them the top 4 predictions, FC Goa was there in that list. But unfortunately, they are yet to win a game. What do you think? How do you assess the team's performance?
I think the team's missed some key personnel, including Brandon. I feel Brandon's been a big miss, and they've played with Brandon for so long that they're used to playing with Brandon, and he's like an extra foreigner. So when you had 5 foreigner, he was like a 6th foreigner, and when you have 4 foreigners on the pitch, he's like a 5th foreigner. So the balance of our team seems to be off when he's not there. Ortiz hasn't fully recovered. You can see that he's not up to the mark of last time. It's too early to say anything of Iram, but they've struggled in defense. They've struggled with the balance of the team, and I've got to be honest, it doesn't look good at all. 3 wins, no points whatsoever on board. Already 9 points dropped, and the top 4 keeps getting away from them all the time. Odisha currently in 4th, and they're 6 points ahead. So I won't say the season's done yet, but any turnaround has to start now.
Well, when you stress on the word now, I must remind our listeners that we are recording this episode on a Tuesday, and that means Goa will play a game as we record this, but we won't be able to talk about that because the episode you'll be listening to is on a Wednesday. I think the next game that they play is Bengaluru FC, but it doesn't make sense for us to speak about that before we see this game tonight happening. But let's move on. I think talking about FC Goa, the last game that they lost was against Khalid's men. Let's talk about that team a bit. They started with it was a shaky start, but they've got a win finally. And how do you assess Khalid and his team?
Well, my first assessment of Khalid's team was that they're probably not good enough to make the top 4. Nothing's changed that. Even though they picked up a win against FC Goa, you can see that there are a few gaps in the team. For example, the defense is still shaky, right? What happened against Goa was that Goa tried to create chances but couldn't put it away, right? They couldn't finish off Northeast United. It's difficult for Khalid also because he's lost a few key personnel to teams. Apuia mainly. Hernan Santana's come in. He's done a fabulous job. He's probably one of the best at what he does in the league, but nothing much to write about or to talk about Northeast United. You have to look at their core to see, because it's not really up to the mark. If you look at the other ISL teams, there are teams with much better cores. You have players who are, I would say, bottom rung ISL level or maybe I-League level playing in a ISL team. So I do not think there should be high expectations of this team, and that's my honest opinion of them. Even though they defeated Goa, but Khalid's going to make them more difficult to beat. Khalid's going to make them more compact. Khalid's going to make them more combative, and Khalid, that's what he does with his teams. He inherits, even if he inherits underdog teams, he tries to motivate them, and he's a great man manager. So So let's see. I won't rule them out yet, but my first inkling is that they're not a top 4 team also.
Well, talking about top four, I think the team that was considered to be a dark horse, and rightly so, and they've been very impressive throughout the start of the season, and they've also caused another upset in terms of beating 80K MB yesterday. When I say yesterday, it was on Monday. Jamshedpur FC, Owen Coyle and men have been very impressive since the start. We expected them to do so. How do you see? Do you think that they can consistently give this performance?
Yeah, I think Manolo Marquez paid the greatest compliment to Owen Coyle when he, after the press conference, he said, Hyderabad, the first half of the match against Jamshedpur was probably the worst half they played in his tenure, right? And Owen Coyle rightly said, that was a compliment to them because they didn't let him play. And Jamshedpur, we kind of always figured we're going to be like this, and from preseason I'd heard this, that they were a difficult side to beat, and that's what Owen Coyle does. He makes his teams very difficult to beat. They're playing two foreign centre backs, Peter Hartley, who's again among one of the very best in the league, and young Jitu also had a fabulous game yesterday. Brad pointed out on commentary, and I have to agree with him. Len Downgal scored the goal that gave them the lead. And then Alex Lima came on and immediately scored the second one. And obviously there was a bit of controversy regarding ATK's goal, but I mean, no controversy regarding the win. I mean, it was solid. It was a back to the walls job, and I have to say, Hartley looks like a early contender for player of the tournament. I don't know if defenders get it. Defenders are not always maybe at the top of these charts as opposed to forwards, but if someone's making the decision, someone's listening to this pod, I would strongly recommend Hartley because he's been a monster for them in defense. And even Pranoy Haldar, for example, had a brilliant game yesterday. I know he's not the favorite of some teams because of some injuries he might have caused, but hey, that's all part of the game. But Eli Sabia, Peter Hartley, Din Liana and Ricky and Rainesh behind them, these five are going to be key to where Jamshedpur finish. And early indicators are that this is a top 4 team. And Greg Stewart's a great addition, as is Komal Thattal. Komal Thattal's been in the wilderness for so long. He's come back. He's had a point to prove, and he's proving it. So I would say everything's going right for Jamshedpur, but in such a small league, all it takes is one major injury to one major player, and then you're back to using a reserve. You're back to plan B. So I hold my horses, but early indicators is that it's finally the season for Jamshedpur FC when they make the top 4.
Well, let's hope and pray that there are no injuries for any teams, and we've already seen some of them really suffer because of that. Now, this episode kind of looks like, Arka is literally leading me into the next point. Well, it is definitely not scripted, but that's, I think, a good eye for, or good aspect for a good podcast. So you mentioned Pradyum there, and I must say that we all agree to the points that he makes on the mic, but we also have to agree on the things that he does on the pitch as well. In terms of the team that he worked with for Odisha FC have been doing some really good work, and surprisingly, from all the past seasons, it's not a surprise for most of us because we know who worked behind the scenes, but they have been really performing well since the start, except for the last game that they lost against Kerala Blasters. But it's been raining goals. As I started the show by saying it was raining in Bombay, but it was raining goals in Goa. It started with a goal fest the last week between Odisha and East Bengal. We saw 10 goals being played there, a 6-4 win for Odisha. How do you see Odisha? The key is for them to maintain, right? And I feel the match against Kerala Blasters showed that consistency level, because it wasn't like the Kerala Blasters were an easy team to beat that night. So how do you see Odisha going ahead?
I mean, this is expected of the Indian Super League, where, you think one team has the momentum and then boom, right? So, I've witnessed this many times just in the starting of the league. I thought, Mumbai City were great against Goa until they were derailed by Hyderabad. And then I thought Hyderabad were great against Mumbai, but they were completely undone by Jamshedpur. they got a draw nonetheless, right? Then Odisha were raining goals in their first few matches, and Blasters obviously didn't look like the most solid of outfits, but then again all changed. So it's very hard for anyone to say, what caused the, what do you say? I wouldn't say the meltdown, I'd say the reverse against Odisha. I still think they're a good enough side to make the top four. I feel they're one among, let's say, the 5, 6 or 7 sides, that can potentially make the top four. And you also have to factor in the fact that they have 2 foreign centre backs, and for now the teams with 2 foreign centre backs are doing well. I mean, I'm talking about Jamshedpur also, right? So, but the point about Odisha is that they've conceded a few goals. They've let in a few goals. I was just looking at the expected goals the other day, and even before the Kerala games, right? 2 of the 5 highest XG contributions in this campaign came against Odisha, even though they won both the matches. I'm talking about the BFC match as well as the East Bengal match, right? So somewhere down the line, they're conceding way too many chances, right? And that came to bite them back and against Kerala, and that's going to happen. And because at some point at times, the probability, the numbers, the law of average is going to catch up to you, right? So yeah, like you said, Pratt did some rebuilding activity. He has some more, and that's the life of an ISL club that's always keeping on rebuilding. So yes, don't forget that this is a team which finished dead bottom last year, right? So it's difficult for even one man to rebuild the squad in like one summer, right? So probably take 1 summer, probably take 2 summers, maybe even 3, who knows. But the great thing is they've had some people step up. They've had Aridai, they've had Javi put up great performances. I've been very impressed by Isak. Thara has come in, he's been a bit hot and cold, but overall he looks like an upgrade. So I'd say that they are maybe a couple of players away from the top 4, but let's see. I could still be mistaken. They could still make the top 4 this year. And the good thing in Odisha is they have great options to come from the bench, right? They have Isaac, who's been splendid in his first few matches. Liridon Krasniki, you have Daniel Lalimpuya, you have young Nikhil Raju came in, who got a goal. So Odisha overall a better squad. I feel they are going to be in and abouts come the end of season, but it's really difficult for me to stick my neck out at this point in time and say yes, they're going to make it. They first have to stop conceding so many chances. They first have to get that balance right. But I mean, he's made it fun to watch. Kiko Ramirez has made it fun to watch. It's good to watch a team like that. It's very entertaining for the neutral. It's very entertaining for the viewer. So long may it last.
Absolutely. Well, talking about Manolo and his men, right? Last season, we were all impressed. I mean, they took the league to almost the last minute to even decide who gets to the top 4. But this time around, it's been a shaky start. And especially the last match, they were completely undone by Jamshedpur, like we spoke about. But how do you see this season? Do you still see a chance that Hyderabad makes the top 4?
Yeah, Hyderabad, I think, for the way they play, I mean, I'm always going to back them to make top 4. They're a good team. I mean, make no mistake about it. They've made some smart additions this summer. They have Edu Garcia, who's come in and who's one of the greats to play in the league. I mean, I know he doesn't get his due share as some of the others to have played in the league, but make no mistake about it, Edu is really great, right? You have Bart Ogbeche, who got a goal against Jamshedpur, but he's blown hot and cold, and that's I think a concern for Manolo Marquez. He's not been his usual consistent self, and in a league as short as this, you need your frontmen to be consistent, because you look at a pattern, right? You look at a pattern going back a few years. Everyone who makes the top 4 has strikers who they heavily rely on. And I think the stats will prove me right. In most of cases, they have a striker who gets more than 10 goals, right? Ogbechi usually is that striker, but this season, he might still get more than 10 goals, but like I said, he's been a bit in and out of form. Also, Yasir's injury is a major one. I'm hearing he might be out for an extended period of time. So all what this means is that there's a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Joel Chianese and Javier Severio. These two really have to step up. We saw young Rohit Danu step up against Mumbai, get the third goal. That was good to see. Right, in terms of defending, I don't have a problem with their defense. I think because the fullbacks have such extremely high work rate, they'll always manage to get them out of trouble or just pin the opposition back with their blinding pace. Right, both Ashish and Akash are like frightfully quick, so they're not gonna have a problem. And you have Jao Victor screening them, so I think that's an added layer of protection. Right. The problem is in the attack. The problem is in getting the goals that their play merits. The problem is putting the ball back on net, and who's going to do it? We don't know. Is it Ogbeche? Is it Chianese? Is it Severio? Danu? Aniket Jadhav? Any of these guys? So yeah, I mean they're also a team that I expect to be in and abouts till the end. And when I mean in and abouts, I mean in the hunt till at least 17-18 games. So let's see. I feel. And I said this at the start of the season, a lot of what they do this season depends on the two new signings. One's Juan Gonzalez, the other is Bart Ogbeche, and my opinion hasn't changed at all. It's still down largely to these two gentlemen. And if Ogbeche gets injured, or if he runs into a bad run of form, then it's down to Joel Chianese and Javier Severio in his place. So yeah, let's see. And and I don't think Manola's panicking yet. I think they'll be fine. Depends on how their next few games goes.
Yeah, talking about the Calcutta clubs now, well, I'm sure it's painful to be an East Bengal fan at the moment because of the mess that we know that they are in, because of which the reason why it affects their performance on the pitch as well. It's been a bad run for them. Do you see anything booming for them? They've just got 2 draws, if I'm not wrong, so far.
I think it's the match today that will decide if they finish last or higher. And I don't want to say the same for Goa, but because they're also at the bottom of the table, this is essentially a 6-pointer today. East Bengal, for my money, have been more solid than last year. It's just that some of the players they have, and I think the manager himself came out and said it. He said some of the managers we have are not cut out for the ISL, and I'm inclined to agree with him slightly. I feel for him also because squad formed at the last minute. Everything was done in a rush. Essentially, when you're doing especially the foreign transfer the last moment, it means you're only getting folks who weren't really wanted anywhere else, or who really didn't get a contract anywhere else, right? And sometimes those turn out to be good. Like Bright Enobakare was a fantastic player last season, right? So I don't know if they get anybody in January, but I mean, early indications are that there's going to be another season of struggle, and you really can't blame them because squad formed at the last moment. You got to feel for them, to be honest. And I'm honestly surprised they got a draw of Chennai, because Chennai looked like a really, really strong team, right? And for like what Chennai do essentially depends on their attack, because their defense looks like it will just shut up shop and not let anybody score. So I mean it's a good point for East Bengal against Chennai to build upon. But today's game against Goa is tonight's game in Goa is massive. It could be a win for any team, and I think the winning team gets a lot of confidence, whereas the losing team goes home absolutely deflated, and you have to say possibly out of the reckoning, at least mentally, for the top 4. Not mathematically, but I'm talking about mentally. I'm talking about that point in the season where you know you're not going to make top 4, irrespective of if your form picks up. So tonight's match absolutely crucial, 6-pointer.
Yeah, well, like I said, guys, this episode will be coming out on Wednesday, so we'll know what the result is already. But let's move on, since I will come to ATKMB in a bit. But since you mentioned Chennai, and they deserve to be, talking about them because they've had a great start to the season. They've had two wins. One is against Hyderabad, and then a Northeast, and then a draw against East Bengal, which is like a win for East Bengal there. But how do you see the season going for Chennai FC? They've really come back after some dismal runs in the previous editions.
I mean, I'm not surprised. The coach prefers this style of play, right? I mean, if you look at their, what do you say? If you look at the goals exchanged during their games, Chennai in they played 3 games. They've got scored 3. They've let in only 1. So essentially, that's a total of 4 goal contributions. In their 3 games, it's a case of goal karunga bhi nahi, karne bhi nahi dunga type. So they're essentially like I mean, at this point in time, they're like the Burnley of the. No offense to either team, either Burnley or Chennai. And I just think that Chennai are super compact. They'll draw half their matches anyway on the prospect that they're going to have a lot of clean sheets. They already have 2 clean sheets. I easily expect them to end up with 8, 9. I mean, barring a major meltdown in the defense. And you can see the coach's defensive stance is working because he's playing Narayan Das, right, as a left centre back, and it's working. Like anything he touches in defense is working. And he has Slavko Damjanovic, who's a fantastic defender. To be honest, like I mean, I expected this before season, but even I didn't expect he would be that good. But yeah, like I said, I mean, they're not going to. It all depends on what their forwards do, right? If the forwards score, they're going to win more matches than they draw, right? And I see very few, losses for them. It'll have to be a really good footballing performance to break them down, right? And I think that might segue into your next team. But I mean, when I talk about really good footballing performance, I'm talking about Mumbai City, who've I've seen put up a couple of really blindingly good performances, right? So Des Ball for the win.
Yeah, I will come to Mumbai City in a bit, but before that, I have to talk about a team that even they've caused havoc in. 5-1 defeat at the hands of Mumbai City FC. ATK MB until then were enjoying the top position of the points table. Now they are not anymore because they've had back-to-back losses, one against Mumbai and one against Jamshedpur. Do you see Habas still being the coach of ATK MB until the end of the season, knowing the nature of how ISL goes?
Habas was on thin ice to begin with, right? And I mean, let's look at his losses this season. 6-0 against Nasaf, right? I mean, that I'm sorry, there's no other word for it. It was utter humiliation. I mean, what else would you call it a 6-0 when you can't call it a fighting loss because it's not.
But wasn't something that was expected, right? I mean,
okay, so here's something for perspective, right? So Nasaf then went on to play Liman from Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is not close to India in either the rankings or the country coefficient when it comes to AFC country coefficient rankings, right? So India's higher on both rungs, right? I'm not saying we should read too much on the result, but I saw the match. I saw that Liman was much more compact. I just felt Habas got it totally wrong, right? And Nasaf, yes, Nasaf were good. Nasaf are an Uzbeki team who are a better footballing nation than us. I mean, to be very honest, right? Nasaf defeated Dempo 9-0 back in 2011. But then again, that was Uzbekistan at the top of, very top of Asia. They were one win away, I think, from making the World Cup at that stage. I feel this Nasaf, I mean, with a little bit of guile, with a little bit of tactics, with a little bit of preps, could have been handled much, much better. I'm not saying that, 6-0 would have been turned to a win, but they could have, because Liman did it and then Nasaf lost in the finals, right? So, no, I don't think Habas came out looking really well, and I'm not buying the excuse that Nasaf was a really good team, so we expected. Yes, we expect a loss, but 6-0, is not expected, especially given the fact that everyone thought ATK was probably the best Indian team to try and combat, in Asia, given their defensive noose. So it was an entirely anticlimactic performance from ATK. Then against Mumbai City, again they came unstuck, right? And I'll tell you what the problem was. They were playing Liston Golasso and Manveer Singh as wing back, right? And when those two go up, there's a lot of space, right? That was the same thing in Nassab. Nassab found a lot of space on the wings. So I have to question the tactics here. And I mean, if Senior Habas is listening, apologies, but I mean, I'm honestly trying to figure out what you're doing because it's not working out, right? And Jamshedpur also took advantage of that. So, I mean, Habas is a man walking on thin ice, I feel, because he did not deliver last year as well. And he's got everything he wanted this year. He got Hugo Bumu, right? They paid an ISL transfer record fee. It's an Indian transfer record fee. Indian league, that is. So, I don't know. And essentially at the start of the season, I just expected Hugo and Roy to run rampant. But then the back isn't sorted. The defense isn't sorted. The gate isn't shut tight like you would expect an ATK, Mohun Bagan, a Habas team to be, right? They've conceded 9 goals in 4 matches. By the way, only East Bengal have conceded 10 and Bengaluru conceded 9, but Bengaluru scored 7 also, and Bengaluru haven't spent the same amount of money, neither of East Bengal as ATK Mohun Bagan. So Havas, I feel like, is on very thin ice, and I don't know how long they'll have patience with him, but failure. And we know what ATK want. The ATK want to play the AFC Champions League. Let's be very honest. I think everyone who follows Indian football ISL know that they want to win the league shield and the championship. And ATK Mohun are not the types to compete for top 4 and say, hey, we made top 4, so we are fine, right? So I do not see Habas surviving the season if he doesn't arrest this slide. Next match against Chennai. Huge clash of ideology there because Chennai like to sit deep. They like to frustrate their opponents, right? Which Jamshedpur did against ATK Mohun Bagan. So I don't know. I think Habas loses that match. Should be curtains.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree to the points that you mentioned. Yes, definitely 6-0 was a thrashing considering the team that was fielded there. But let's see. We all have to wait and see how it goes for ATKMB and Habas's tenure there. But let's now finally talk about maybe Mumbai City will still come and keep it till the end for them because they deserve a minute more to talk about. We've anyway mentioned about it. Talking about BFC, right? I think this will go hand in hand. I will come to Mumbai City anyway because the last game that they played, Chetri's penalty was saved by Nawaz, or rather Chetri missed it, to put it in a better way. How do you see BFC? Do you see, I think whenever I asked a couple of people to send in their, predictions for top 4. None of them put BFC in their top 4. And it looked like they had probably they could play free flowing because there was no pressure, nothing was expected. But I'm sure they had expectations from their side as they were in a rebuild mode. They had a new coach at helm. A new season, a new fresh start, some key players coming in, new signings coming in, but somewhere some things are still not working, or rather there's some shortcomings even now.
Well, it's not really a surprise to see why people haven't put BFC in their top 4, right? Anyone who's an objective viewer of the ISL or anyone who's been following it seriously will tell you this year also that they do not expect BFC to make top 4. I do not expect BFC to make top 4. Let's look at BFC's opening fixtures, right? Against Northeast, Odisha, KBFC and Mumbai City. I'd say Mumbai City is the only tough game. I know Odisha are doing well, but a really good top 4 side would probably get a draw or even maybe a win off Odisha, depending on the situation on the game, of course. And why I'm saying that they're not good side to make the top 4 is because against Odisha, right, a team with kind of a similar ending point this season, I feel, as BFC, I would say Odisha only a couple of rungs above BFC currently. BFC were completely outplayed, I felt. At times they did well, but I felt Odisha on the whole, they had a few chances and they converted them. BFC on the other hand actually had a lot of chances. They didn't. what's also hurting BFC is that the Indian core there is kind of faltering, right? The Indian core that's been at the club for a long time, trusted to get them over the line in crucial matches. It's not really working out, right? Clayton Silva still remains Clayton Silva. On his day, he remains one of the best, right? But the centre back pairing, either with Pratik or with Alan Costa and Hyundru Musao King, it's not working out. Ashik at left back, I feel, is a waste of his talent. I mean, he's such a good attacker. He's such a good, fantastic winger, and I could even play him at striker. So I don't know. Like, I mean, they haven't had the toughest start yet. They haven't done really well. I think that tells you all you need to know about BFC. Just to look at their upcoming fixtures, they have Hyderabad FC, FC Goa, and ATK Mohun Bagan, right? All three teams who are, you would say, at the start of the season, primed to make the top four, irrespective of what they're doing now. So it actually gets harder for BFC from now on. And after ATK Mohun Bagan, they have Jamshedpur and SWNFC. That the 5 games after this will define BFC season if they sink or swim. Because honestly, the 5 games look really tough, tougher than their first 4 fixtures. So let's see. Let's hope they can come out from a slump, because they have a passionate fan base. We know them really well. They know me personally really well, the West Block Blues. And some of them, my friends, might be hurt, but I do not think they make top 4 this year. Even though they have good additions, they have to turn something around fast. Otherwise don't see them at all doing it.
Well, absolutely. And I finally now come to Mumbai City FC, and I think, this ball is definitely working, though we thought they would have some starting troubles to continue the dominance that they had last season, but it looks like they are probably on their way to defend their title. Your quick thoughts on Mumbai City? I mean, there's nothing much to speak about because we've already spoken a bit about it. So before we move on to our next segment, let's just speak about this. What are your quick thoughts? Can they be consistent now?
Yeah, I feel of all the so-called big teams, of all the so-called teams fancy to make the top 4, I feel Mumbai City are the ones that look most likely to finish top 4 without a hitch, because over their 4 games, right, there was a slight blip against Hyderabad, and I call that a blip because I think that was more an outlier. That was more an outlier than the norm, let's say, because I saw them against ATKMB. They were fabulous, right? Against BFC, it was a very professional performance. Against Goa also, it was a very professional performance. Des Ball is here. The man, his hype is real. He speaks really well, by the way. Really elegant, like a Bond who's come to the ISL. I was telling somebody this and they were laughing at my description of him, but I think Des Ball is great, right? It's very compact. The press is good, and I think all the analysts in the country, they really love him because he's doing something fabulous with Mumbai City. He's come in, it's a short time. Let me remind you, it's not even his team. It's Sergio Lobera's team, technically, right? He's only added, maybe only had to say on, let's say, 3 foreigners, 2 foreigners, that's it, right? Everybody else is who Lobera wanted, and Des is making them play, man. Des is making them play. He's solid, but the big 2 fixtures coming up here, Jamshedpur and Chennai, on the 9th and 15th. So we don't know how these 2 teams are going to, shape up against Mumbai City. But I think everybody now knows that Mumbai is the most difficult team to beat, right? But yes, if anybody's hearing, my slight, inclination is that Mumbai have their weak areas, right? I think Jahu's decline, I won't say decline, I think decline is stagnated. He's pretty much the same level he was, but he's not the same Jahu that played in Goa. Like, that Jahu was fabulous. That Jahu was too good, probably, right? It's also could be because the league's gotten better, Also, Mandar Rao Desai wasn't great against BFC. He struggled, especially when Prince Ibarra tried to drop to the side, and he became a wide forward. Amay Ranawade, yes, good player, but can he keep this level of form up? Rahul Beke, we've seen him struggle for the national team, over this summer and maybe a little bit longer. Can he keep this form up? Some ifs and buts, but on the whole, you see, Casio Gabriel, Vikram Pratap, and Igor Angulo, and these three, my, like what a deadly combination. Like Casio, especially, like I don't know, he might even turn out to be a better player than Bumu. Forget the stats, right? Forget the goals and assists. If you just look at Casio in a game and what he's doing to tie up play, to stitch midfield to attack, to really make them a cohesive unit, right? He's the one that's doing the work so that Vikram and Angulo and Bipin can do what they can, right? And Bipin again, hot and cold. I still believe last season was an outlier. Might not have that great a season, but then you have a top, you have a three of the top four like that. You have Casio, Vikram, and Angulo again proving a point. So I don't know, difficult to stop them. Jamshedpur and Chennai, I feel those two fixtures will be key because, like I said, those two teams like to stay back, like to stay compact, pounce on your mistakes. So yeah, let's wait, let's hold on. But for now, West Coast Brigade, Islanders Central, and all the other fan clubs celebrate because the death ball hype seems real, and you can also be excited for the upcoming Asian Champions League because just hope they get an easier draw than FC Goa did. Let's hope they don't have to draw Persepolis, because if they do, then I think Des Buckingham and his Mumbai City team will do really well at the ACL. This is my early season knee-jerk prediction. Don't hold me to it. Don't strangle me later if this goes wrong. But yeah.
Well, that was a great one to end with, but that isn't. We don't end our show there. We have to move on to next segment. We'll have to wait and watch how the season unfolds because of the whole short tenure that it is. Anything can happen at any time. So stay tuned till the end and enjoy until then. But let's move on to something even more fun that happened in Kerala, where the Senior National Women's Championship was taking place, and we have our two finalists in Railways and Manipur. And our dear friend and man Arko was on the comms for the last few matches. Arko, take us through the last few games where I think, if I'm not wrong, Railways defeated Mizoram while Manipur defeated Odisha to reach to the finals. How were the games and what do you reckon to the final match?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to start off a bit personally. Personally, yes, two very long matches today, but it's been great. It's my first time on commentary. I am also improving. I can't deny that I was a bit nervous, but I am getting better. I hope all of you will send in your feedback. Just don't send in rotten eggs in the mail, right? Everything apart from that is fine, but just coming to the matches, right? Heartbreak. I really liked the Mizoram team. I really liked how they played. I think for me personally, philosophy wise, that's the right way to play, right? Keep the ball, move it around, and even when they were dead tired, and just making this point, right? Mizoram played a game more than Railways also, right? Railways had one of their games cancelled in the group stage. Mizoram had one more game. They were fatigued. Take into context that those girls haven't had any matches in the last 2 years because of pandemic. Mizoram's been under 1.5 years of lockdown. I think that's like the world record for a lockdown. 500 days, right, for a lockdown. So situation's been nuts there, literally. And my dear friend Tete Hamar, secretary of the Mizoram Football Association, he told me, listen, we weren't even getting a full squad because COVID's still a thing there. People in the cities now are forgetting. I see a lot of people without their masks. I'm still double masks, even though I'm double vaccinated. But Mizoram, the situation's still bad. I think even the Indian Council of Medical Research came out and said that Mizoram's still a state of concern, right? So that's the state they are in. For them to even put together a team Like that's crazy, and they missed their flight. They missed their train from Guwahati, right? So everyone pooled in money, and they got the girls on a flight, and man, they've repaid their faith, right? Great performances. All of these things taken into context, and take into context that a lot of these girls, age 17, 18, 19, haven't had regular football for the last 2-3 years. These teams can only get better. In fact, I think, and again, don't hold me to this if I go wrong, but I'm going to stick my neck out anyway. I'm going to say in the next 5 years, Mizoram's going to win senior women's national championship, essentially because of the way they play and the great spirit they showed. Railways were always going to come out on top in a penalty shootout because I felt they had the more experience. Some of their players, out-aged Mizoram's players by a decade, but I don't believe in the adage. Obviously, I don't believe in age. If you're old enough, if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's what I believe, right? But still, I think Railways, due to a little bit of experience and a little bit of more breathing room, one game less. Towards the end of the Mizoram match, I don't know how many of our viewers, how many of our listeners saw the game, but Mizoram had come to a standstill. They could barely move. It was 570 minutes in about 10-12 days. Very difficult for girls, who've not had any match time. So that was the first semi. Second semi pretty much went as expected. Odisha put up a great fight. I mean, kudos, right? I've always said this about Odisha. In men's football, maybe doesn't produce enough players. In fact, I did the research. I think there are 0 players from Odisha in this year's ISL, right? Of the registered players, there might be players registered in January, but for now 0. But comes to women's football, it's a powerhouse, and they showed that today. They took on Manipur. Manipur are like the Goliaths of Indian women's football, right? Everyone, if I was a state team facing Manipur, I'd take caution. But they had a young coach who took the game to Manipur, and Odisha women, they don't have, let's say, the standout stars. Don't take me otherwise, but they don't have maybe some of the great players like Sanjay Ranganathan for Tamil Nadu, or let's say, Grace Lalrampari for Mizoram. They don't have great stars, but the team ethic is fantastic. It's fabulous. They were compact. They were tight. They pressed well. And imagine pressing like this for 90 or 120 minutes every 2 days, and that's what they've been doing, right? So they kept this tempo up until the very last minute, and no shame in losing on penalties to Mizoram, because hey, it's to Manipur, because hey, it's Manipur, right? 24 finals in 25 editions. 20. They're chasing the 21st title, right? So imagine, out of 25 editions, they won 80% of the editions, right? So that's just footballing pedigree there. They've had 9 players. Manipur had 9 players in national camp, right? Some more in the India 19, some more in the India 17. Despite that, they put out such a strong squad. I don't know. I think there have been the odd occasions where Manipur's been upset in the last 5-10 years, but they showed today. They are still very much the team to beat, right? And they start the final as favorites for me, because I don't know, there's too much individual quality, and on top of it, that's fantastic teamwork also. They're hardworking, their individual quality, they have team ethic. I don't see why they shouldn't win the final. For me, they start as favorites in the final, but like I said, Railways experience, always counts. And don't forget, Railways also have a lot of Manipuris and Odias, so they'll know a thing or two about their opponents. So interesting final that we have set up, and a repeat of last time's final. Manipur won 1-0, but this is a fresh tournament. Anything could happen.
Are you on the comms for the final game as well?
Yes, I will be on the comms, and hopefully I shall be joined by co-commentator and Karnataka women's state player and Parikram FC midfielder Mithila Ramani as well, who joined me for the first game today. And her daily commitments to her job did not enable her to join me for the second game, but fabulous insights from her for the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that duo of comms is something that you should not miss for anything. So I think, and I'm sure after that great detail analysis, Arco, that you gave us right here, I don't think you're going to get eggs in your mail. You will definitely get some great feedback about your comms as well as some great insights. Thank you so much, Arco, for doing this, for coming onto the show. It was a last minute message that I dropped in and you acknowledged. Thank you so much. Even after doing back to back games, you were still here spending almost 50 minutes with me. Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you very much. That's all I can say right now.
It's Indian football, always here for Indian football. And as you guys saw, Indian women's football has a lot of potential. Please keep seeing it. Please, my request to the Total Indian Football Show is we do more shows on Indian women's football. It's fun, it's exciting, it's only going to get better. And I promise you, there's a lot of interesting bits. If I could just do a self plug, do not mind Siju. A couple of friends and we've taken over, the management of Rangers FC Women. My friend Anirban Ghosh is the head coach. It's a very young, exciting team with the average age of 13 or 14. We're playing the Delhi Women's League, which is starting on 15th. And please support us. Please support us because some of the girls come from marginalized communities, but the football they play is the football that you saw Mizoram play today. Like quick, fast, high pressing football. That's the way I like it, and it's very heartening to see these girls at 13 and 14 taking it to the state league. Sorry for that self plug, but thank you, Siju, for having me on the show. Really appreciate it, and let's see how the final pans out of the Women's National Championship.
Absolutely, and I think that is my favorite word. Until I find a new word, you will have to bear with me. To all the listeners, bear with me, and that my love with the word absolutely. But anyway, Arco, I think one thing I want to tell you personally is never be sorry for what you just did. No apologies accepted over there because you don't have to be. Thank you so much for that plug-in in a way, and I think we'll soon definitely have Anirban here as well talking about his team. And of course, we will not stop talking about women's football. We are called the Totally Indian Football Show that includes men's and women's football. So thank you once again to all our listeners. Follow and subscribe to our show if you haven't yet. What are you doing? Just do that, man. And share your thoughts, share your insights. I'm your host, Siju, signing off. Have a great week.